This episode of Marijuana Today Daily is brought to you by our friends over at Curaleaf, one of the nation's fastest growing multi-state cannabis operators. With 45 local dispensaries, 12 cultivation sites, and 11 processing facilities serving more than 150,000 registered medical marijuana patients. Learn more about Curaleaf over at curaleaf.com, with Curaleaf spelled C-U-R-A-L-E-A-F. Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Tuesday, June 4th, 2019, and you're tuned in to episode 735 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news in our hands, so let's jump right into it. Yesterday, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo said that he does not think it likely that his state will see adult use marijuana legalization pass this year, as the clock counts down to the end of this year's legislative session on June 19th. There's been a lot of talk in New York about expanding legal marijuana reform to include adult use, but the path towards the passage of an adult use bill has been a bit littered with political friction. There are a lot of voices in this discussion, and yesterday Governor Cuomo told reporters, quote, "I don't think it is feasible at this point. I don't think it matters how much I push in 11 days. I think when the Senate says they don't have the votes, I take them at their word," unquote. There's a lot of detail and context wrapped up in this one, so let's swing over to the Democrat and Chronicle for the full read. Hopping a border over to New Jersey, we have some better news in our top headline, as New Jersey state health officials announced yesterday a plan to expand the number of medical marijuana business licenses from 12 to 120. Right now, there are just 6 vertically integrated medical dispensaries open in New Jersey, so this represents a massive shift in how the state's medical program is structured. The 108 new licenses will also be broken down by category, as the industry will shed vertical integration. Of the 108, 54 licenses will be for dispensaries, 30 for processors, and 24 for cultivators. This does not require any kind of legislative approval, and the health department said it will accept applications due on August 15th. If you do cannabis business in New Jersey, you obviously need to have a solid handle on this one. Our final top story today is a really important piece by Naomi Martin over in the Boston Globe about a military veteran working in the legal marijuana industry in Massachusetts who was denied a federally backed mortgage by the Veterans Administration simply because he happened to work in legal cannabis. A spokesperson for the VA said they did not think that the income generated in the legal marijuana industry was stable, and said that their workers could be at risk of prosecution if they were to accept mortgage payments from a person involved with selling federally illicit product, which is just silly. The military veteran, who is remaining unnamed to prevent any kind of federal retaliation, contacted his Congresswoman, Representative Catherine Clark, who sent a letter late last month to the VA demanding answers. That letter was signed by 20 fellow lawmakers. The VA said it will respond, though it hasn't yet. Just another story about how federal marijuana prohibition makes life harder than it should be. Open this one up, share it, and remember it. Those are our top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz out on headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor, Curaleaf, one of the nation's fastest growing multi-state cannabis operators. With 45 local dispensaries, 12 cultivation sites, and 11 processing facilities, serving up more than 150,000 registered medical marijuana patients. The folks over at Curaleaf want you to live life well, which is why they've spent so much time and energy getting good at every step of the legal cannabis supply chain, from cultivation through processing, packaging, labeling, and dispensing. Curaleaf's 3 retail lines of cannabis, medical marijuana Curaleaf, Curaleaf Hemp, and Yuku Craft Cannabis, cover the full spectrum of the legal marijuana market. So whatever you're looking for, you'll likely find it with Curaleaf. Pop over to curaleaf.com, spelled Curaleaf, to learn more about all the good things Curaleaf does and to find the closest Curaleaf shop to you, because there's no better way to experience the Curaleaf difference than by making a visit yourself. Thanks to everyone at Curaleaf for supporting today's show. All right, time for the Blitz. 5 Eyewitness News out of Minnesota did a little bit of journalistic digging and uncovered some numbers for how well the state's 2 licensed medical marijuana companies did last year, financially speaking. According to reports sourced from the Minnesota Department of Health, licensed provider Minnesota Medical Solutions saw a net income loss of $610,000, while fellow licensee Leafline Labs lost $1.8 million. The state's program is generally regarded as one of the more restricted in comparison with other medical marijuana states. For their part, the 2 dispensaries released statements pointing out that sales were up last year and that at least one of them was operating with a net profit so far this year. Last November, just a day after being elected as the new governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer held her first press conference and pledged to, quote, take action next year, unquote, on the issue of expunging past low-level marijuana crimes and pardoning people in jail now for the same offenses. But as the Detroit Free Press handily points out, there hasn't been much done along either front so far this year. There are people in prison right now in Michigan who should not be, and lots more that have the blights of a cannabis criminal charge, making their lives harder. Read this one. Sam Wood at the Philadelphia Inquirer did some math and figured out that back in April, the multi-state cannabis operator Harvest Health and Recreation seemingly exceeded the number of marijuana business licenses allowed to be controlled by any one person or corporate entity, with an acquisition that put it 2 licenses over the 19 license limit. According to Sam's reporting, the company was able to do this by setting up corporate management agreements that allow it to loophole around those limits. Corporate management agreements are signed between smaller companies and businesses and larger corporations, which takes the lion's share of the small business profits and makes all management decisions while keeping the actual ownership of the license at the local level. We've seen this play out in Massachusetts and will likely see it play out again in limited license states, so maybe not a bad story to dive into fully. Yesterday, during an interview with CNBC's Jim Cramer, Douglas Pertz, CEO of security company Brinks, said that he saw a massive opportunity in legal cannabis and estimated the global marijuana market, illicit or otherwise, at $160 billion, a figure that's pretty in range with today's best estimates. Green Entrepreneur has a story up about CBD-infused toothpaste that I think is worthy of a read. I have to admit to being a bit skeptical about all the ways that CBD is being thrown around these days, and on the face of it, CBD toothpaste seems kind of silly. But at the same time, CBD does purportedly have anti-inflammatory properties, so it could actually be a good thing to include in our dental care. But however you cut it, it's clear that there's so much more that we don't know about CBD than we do. Just something to think of in general, not a bad story to read. Politico takes a long-form dive into California's Emerald Triangle, treading on a storyline we've seen pop up lots in the past about how California's legal marijuana system is making it difficult for the region's marijuana cultivators to transition out of the illicit market. Writer Natalie Ferdig does a good job of laying out some of the challenges posed by moving into the legal market, including increased compliance and licensing costs combined with a depressed wholesale cannabis market. Another one I'd read today if I were you. And finally for today, a sheriff in New York State who issued a statewide warning last month about marijuana his officers had seized that supposedly tested positive for the dangerous painkiller fentanyl said that the marijuana did not, in fact, contain any fentanyl. Sullivan County Undersheriff Eric Chabuti said that a field test showed the presence of fentanyl on seized cannabis, but that a follow-up test in the state's crime lab did not. That's not at all surprising given how imprecise and prone to failure today's roadside drug testing schemes are. It would have been nice if Under Sheriff Chabuti had waited for the accurate test results before running around warning of painkiller-laced marijuana. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again tomorrow morning with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to our sponsor, Cureleaf, and to all of our awesome Patreon listeners for the support that makes our show possible. To join the illustrious ranks of the Patreon listeners yourself, swing over to our website at mgatodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. I'm your host, Shay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in, starting your day with marijuana today.
One take, Shay. One take.